Welcome everyone to episode 92 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I welcomed a Belleville, Illinois native. He's actually currently in St. Louis, Missouri. Cody James. He's a hip-hop MC. He actually reached out to me, I believe, at the beginning of January about being on the show, so I was glad to get him on this week. He talked about kind of just going through his college years. He actually took a break from music for a little bit, kind of to readjust himself. He had a lot of life changes that he discusses in the episode. And we talked kind of about how, you know, when you try to plan a lot of things out in life, it usually doesn't go the way you think it's going to anyway, and life just kind of puts you in a different spot, and sometimes that could be a better spot. And I think that for Cody, that's pretty much what happened. He talks about moving from Belleville to St. Louis, where he has a home studio now. He's learning to mix and master a lot of his own material. We talk about his album, his first one in 2021, called For the Ville, and the process behind that album and how it changed over to his second album, Seasons, which he just dropped in January. And he talks about being more comfortable kind of putting that project together as opposed to the first one and what he learned through that. I really love that Cody has a lot of long-term goals for himself and his life and everything, and I think he's already putting out great music that a lot of people enjoy, and if he keeps on this path, he's going to be around for a long time. And like I said, I appreciate him for reaching out and wanting to be on the episode and supporting the platform. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome everyone to episode 92 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today we have a really incredible MC out of Illinois, Belleville to be exact. He's currently in Missouri though. Cody James is here. How are you, man?
I'm blessed, brother. Like I said, I appreciate you having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And like I said, thank you for even reaching out and wanting to be on the show to begin with. So to start every episode off, we kind of have the guest give a little bit of background. How did you get into music? How long have you been doing it? Just basic information for those that might not be familiar with you and what you do.
Yeah, so I think I've always been around music, from friends to family members, and I started writing real early. I never knew music would honestly be a path. Just like I said, a lot of writing, a lot of poetry, a lot of short stories. I always really excelled at writing. And I got into high school, and I was in some like advanced writing courses, and all the teachers I had always told me, you need to explore something with writing. Especially my poetry sense, and my ability to paint pictures with words always popped out. So I'd say about 5 years ago, I kind of took it lightly and just started to dibble dabble. I put my first song out on SoundCloud, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I look back now and listen to it, and I'm like, man, this was not the greatest thing ever. Mm-hmm. But so I'd say about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I took the serious leap to do it. I had some life things pop up, and I actually took a year hiatus, and had a huge, just like spiritual and mental reawakening, if you would. And now we're to the point where I just released my first album in a year, my second album overall. Two singles after that, one single just today dropped called Ride. I got the at-home studio. I'm learning, every aspect of the music scene that I can, from mixing to, mastering to, I really do everything now, to the promotion of myself. But, that's not without the help of some amazing people along the way. So.
Yeah, man, that's super awesome to hear. So I'm kind of curious then, you said you took a little hiatus. So what do you think you learned during that time period? Was it kind of just like you had to get your mind right and then kind of come back, and now you're attacking it more, I don't know, with a free and clear view? Or like what kind of did you go through that you're comfortable sharing, obviously, but like...
Yeah, no. I went through a tough mental stretch. I sensed it was coming. Just, I don't know. I put a lot of pressure on myself to just do great things. I'm a perfectionist at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think with that, I felt all this pressure, and there's a lot of things I was learning as my career started to grow with people around me with the right intentions, and I started to see things for what they were. And not only that, but on top of that, I went through, a engagement that failed that kind of hit me, hard. And I think after I just, kind of stopped feeling sorry for myself and just realized that, literally this life is what you make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the choice of, I was working at a finance firm, and I hated it. And I was going to work every day in a suit and a tie, and it just wasn't me. And I finally just, had this mindset of, well, okay, if I'm going to go through with this, let's not put any pressure. Let's just literally create.
Mm-hmm.
And that's literally what I've been doing, man. Like I said, I got the at-home studio now. So I'm in my at-home studio, I think, more than I do anything else. So I just have a mantra of just creating daily, and I think just no pressure, just coming in with a free mind and just literally creating and trying to do things that I haven't done before musically.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great too, because like you're hitting the ground running. You know what I mean, on kind of this new journey that you're on. It's kind of crazy though. Like you think about in life, a lot of times we think we have everything mapped out, and then things will just start happening that we might not even be in control of, and we're like, that might lead us to something even greater. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think the attitude that you have is just you're embracing that change. You're not kind of shying away from it. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and this is kind of not really. I guess I don't really like the phrase like be a new you or like be a new me or whatever, but it's like it's just you, but you've evolved. You know what I mean? Like from those experiences, you've learned, and now you're on to this new thing, and it's working out for you. You know what I mean?
So, definitely. I think life has a weird way of just like showing you what exactly you're meant to do, and I think the more and more we go against it, I had days where I hated music. I hated listening to my old music. I hated, the pictures and everything, the magazine blogs and everything that I had in my phone. And life eventually had a way of turning way around and being like, no, this is what you love to do. This is what, your quote calling is. And I think in a weird way, I'm more blessed that all these things didn't happen, that I was so 100%, just gung-ho on doing, getting married and working a finance firm that had a promise of this much money and everything else. I don't know. I'm blessed now looking back that those things didn't happen, that I'm, even sitting right now in my chair at my desk in my at-home studio and just taking in the last year and a half, and it's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's all about trusting the process too. And even like going back to what you said about the SoundCloud, like your first SoundCloud song, you're like, this is great. And then you look back on it now, but it's like, you always start somewhere. Like, you got to start somewhere and then you work your way up. And it always gets better as long as you keep going. So that's great. Love that story, man. For sure. So you're from Belleville, Illinois.
Correct.
You said you're in Missouri now. Like, what kind of led you to go down there? Is it connection related? Is it kind of just life happening? Like, what led to that? And going back to Belleville, is it like a lot going on in Belleville as far as like independent artists and things like that, as far as music goes, or is there not a ton there? Like, what are your opinions on that?
Man, that's a good question. Honestly, St. Louis is only 25, 30 minutes away, so there was no like real like reason of why I moved. I just got a really good deal on a house that I'm staying in. That's cheap enough to allow me to, not necessarily need to have a great job per se and still be able to work on my craft. So big blessing there. Like I said, not really any key reason, just found a cool house that's cheap enough that, I love where I'm at. I'm in actually the south side of St. Louis. It's very like cultural driven. There's everything within 15 minutes here, the food here is to die for, dude. Like, I would recommend coming here and eating the food, like, to anyone. But to answer the other question, Belleville is a town of, like, I think 52,000 people now. It's a growing town. They're making a transition from, like, older age to, like, my age, like 20, 26, 27, 28-year-old. So it's an interesting time for them. But as far as artists, there is a lot of talent there. I just think being you think of like 50,000. I mean, I still think of that as a small town. Mm-hmm. I just think there's still a like small-minded approach there that, as much talent as there is, and I mean, there's a crazy amount of talent, and I like to highlight, Belleville in whatever I do. So all of my features on the album, I'd say like 90% of the features that I have are all people from Belleville. My old engineer that mixed the album, everything, all from Belleville. So there's an insane amount of talent. Again, I think it's just the mindset of, no one from Belleville has ever really, quote, popped, if you would. And even from like St. Louis, you think of St. Louis, it's so close. And it's like, who's really, quote, again, popped from St. Louis, other than like Nelly 20 years ago. And now you think of Smino. So in the grand scheme, there's just this like small-minded mindset, but I think as we grow, as the city grows, as we all grow together, all the independent artists from here, we start to see that more and more and more incredible things are possible. So I don't know, man. I just try to be a beacon of inspiration in the city, and, to show artists that anything is possible. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I've done some pretty cool things too. So just to show other artists that, look, you put the grind in, the daily grind, there's something that's cool that's going to come out of it. You can do it.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, you kind of just got to do what's for you at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's not really like you could technically do it from anywhere, but it's like you said, it's about almost like that gaining a new mindset. Kind of just the new scenery almost gives you the new mindset. You know what I mean? Like if you change your environment, that can give you a new perspective. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying like before, is like you're kind of on this new journey a little bit. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that, I think, is like you're just embracing it all. You know what I mean? So right now it's St. Louis. Like next it could be somewhere else. You never know. But I think that's very cool. I do need to make it down to St. Louis, though. You reminded me that.
Dude, yeah, St. Louis is cool.
A couple of my friends have been there, and they're like, yeah, it's a really cool like sports town and food town and everything. So one of these days.
Yeah, and it gets a bad rap. I think a lot of times it gets a bad rap for like its like high crime rate or whatever, but I think honestly, like, I don't know. I just think you can be anywhere and the worst thing can happen. It's just divine timing. I don't think St. Louis is bad. I keep my head down and just mind my business, and knock on wood, I've been good, and I pray that I'll be good for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do at the end of the day, no matter what. That's basically all that anyone can do. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. So, diving in on the music now, let's go back to last year. You do the first full album for the Ville, first album. So, what was that whole process like? Like, what was it like creating that, writing that, picking production for that? Who was involved? Like, if you want to highlight anyone that helped you out. Just kind of give a little bit of background on the process of putting together a body of work for the first time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of lessons learned. I felt like for me, I was very extremely proud of the project, and I think now going back, like I go back and like listen to it now, and I'm like, wow, like I actually thoroughly enjoy these songs. And going back just a little bit, I think the biggest thing now is I truly just make music for myself. Now, it used to be, well, what's gonna, give out the most streams? What's gonna get me here? And yada yada yada. And I think that's the worst reason that you could ever do something. The intentions were so flawed, and I think that's like a universal reasoning of why I went through all the stuff I went through. But back to the question, I think it was a lot of fun, and honestly, like on all the projects that I've had, and especially my first album For the Ville and now Seasons, I've honestly finished it all in one day, like as far as tracking. And those are like my favorite freaking days in the world. My engineer, he's actually an artist himself, Heartbreak. He engineered both of them. On the first one, let's see, I'm trying to think. On the first one, I know I had features. KP Kano is an artist from St. Louis that's really talented. He was on there, and MC Trays as well on Options. So like I said, I had a lot of fun with those guys, finishing those. The music videos, for that project and everything was fun. But a lot of lessons learned too. I also feel like, as an artist, we strive for just this amount of perfection. But like I said, my mindset was in a place where I was like, I got to do whatever I can so that I can reach, this stream quota or this whatever. And, even though I'm extremely proud of the project, and I think, it's a really good first project, really good first album, I do think, like, looking back, very reflective that some of the pieces were, like, rushed compared to the amount of time that I took on my last album, Seasons. Seasons was a 6-7 month project, of writing, of picking out production, to whereas For the Ville was like maybe a month of, okay, well, I have these however many beats, here's these songs, I'm gonna rush it out, and as soon as it's done, we're just gonna push it out. So where Seasons, like, there's been a whole plan, step by step by step. So like I said, a lot of lessons learned from that first project, and then also the time off. So
I love that though, because what you said about like the intent behind the music, and I feel like fans, I think, can see that, like, when they hear things or when, like, you present it to them a certain way, it's like if you're presenting it only to get attention and, like you said, the streams and stuff, and there's no real, like, honest message there's no real purpose behind it, they'll probably know that when they hear or see whatever it is and be like, that's not really, that doesn't align with, like, them and their brand and, like, what they stand for. Especially if you've, like, been around before, I feel like it's harder to get away with, too, when you're trying to do stuff like that. It's like, I love what you said about you gotta, like, really enjoy it and be passionate about it and be deeply rooted in it. And that's what you should be presenting to people, you know what I mean? So, but I think, like you said, you kind of got to go through that learning curve, because you do you want the best possible thing to happen. Like, when you release a song, like, you want as many listeners as you get, and you're like, wow, I want to, be like my favorite artists and be at that level already, and you're in a rush. But then you're like, when you slow it down and you simplify everything and you kind of just strip it away, you're like, if I enjoy this and I'm, I put my 100% into this, that's all that matters. People are going to receive it how they receive it. And there's always more music to put out too, you know what I mean? It's like, I think everyone gets caught up every time they put something out as if it's going to be the end all be all and they don't have anything else to ever put out. It's like, if that doesn't do what you thought it would do, go back to the drawing board and kind of figure something else out, but still just make sure it's what you want to do and just present it how you should and just be yourself. So I think we just, like, as a society that's so, like, strung up on instant gratification, like, we fall in love with the end result and not the process. And I think, looking back, I definitely was more in love with the end process, and I wish the end result, and I wish I would have taken the time to, like, thoroughly enjoy every step. Whereas I think, like, Seasons, the album that just came out, last month, I feel like I thoroughly just
truly enjoyed every single step. And I think I was like in a meditative state the entire time, from the writing to the production to the going through with the post-production and everything of that matter. I think I really just became a like workaholic, and I fell in love with that every single step of the way, like mindset, to where now, like, now that I have the at-home studio and, I'm learning to do post-production more and more and more, I'm so in love with those nitty-gritty details, and that, like, okay, well, cool. Like, is this song truly done? Ride, the single that just came out today, I literally pulled that 8 different times from, like my distributor, and was like, okay, this is cool, but I'm taking these lessons on mixing and mastering, and I really just want to make this the best that I can. So I think when you fall in love with just the actual step-by-step process, the end result becomes even better.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I think that's a concept that's kind of hard to grab when you're a beginning artist, because you're just like, man, I want to make the most fire song ever, the most fire project ever. But it's like, if you really take that time to make the most fire, like just step by step by step, like it's literally going to give you the most insane product that you've ever created before.
Yeah, and people miss the fun part, which is actually making the music. You know what I mean? Like, that is the fun part. It's like people are, like you said, they get ahead of themselves and they're looking ahead. It's like, nah, just be in the moment, man. You gotta enjoy making this song and just have fun doing it. That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Especially when you have like collaborators with you at the time and you're bouncing ideas back and forth and trying to come up with something new. Like, that's always, for me, still has been like the best part of just making music and being with people that you see eye to eye with, and totally agree with that, 100%. So you mentioned Seasons, and I can tell you speak very highly of it compared to the first album and everything.
Right.
So, and you just mentioned kind of like the creative process behind that. So for, let's just say, whatever you do next, like whatever album is next, are you kind of trying to go that same route as far as like the process that you did behind this, or you kind of just want to kind of just see where it goes with the next like full body of work? Like, did you feel entirely comfortable with the way that it all came together this time around, or like just touch on that a little more, I guess?
Honestly, I felt like I loved the way that this was all orchestrated. From the feature process to just the tracking to the writing and everything. I would say my mindset for the next one, really, I feel like I'm such a just student of the game of music. So I feel like, as much as I could say, oh yeah, this is going to be the process, I feel like my process is always growing, So I have started working on another body of work. I feel like my mindset now is just don't stop, and now that I have the album that has dropped and I have 2 singles like following, and I know a lot of my, close circle people were like, man, you're going to drop an album and then drop 2 singles like back to back, like weeks. And I was like, yeah, I didn't put out music for a year. So like, let's just go. But I feel like right now I'm kind of at like let's just take and baby what we have so far, and we'll release it whenever I feel like it's ready. Not saying the other ones weren't, but I feel like, I mentally am just like, I don't have a timetable for anything. I just want to make it the best product that I can make. Now in the time being, I mean, there might be some, singles sprinkled and some music videos released, but I think just as far as like a whole nother body of work, I think the only thing I would change is just making the project more of Cody James, just more of myself, less features. I don't know. I think just, I don't want to say proving to myself, because I think, music is music, but I think I really just want to highlight, my capabilities on just a project alone.
Mm-hmm. I think that'll give you kind of a new experience, kind of a new outlook too. Like if you do try it, it's almost like a
Definitely.
challenge. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to challenge yourself more and push yourself more that way. And I think like I'm not an artist myself, but I feel like every time an artist does like an album, they want it to be like maybe not totally different than the last one, but like each one is like a new chapter of the book. You know what I mean? And they kind of
Yeah.
all make up the story, like the full story. So I think each album, it's cool to have those different experiences. And then you look back and you're like, oh, this one had that moment where we did that. And then I did this in this moment on this album. So it's like that kind of accompanies like your whole self as an artist. You know what I mean? And your story.
Definitely.
So, and I'm glad you're doing albums too,
And
because I know
I'm
like,
excited to see what I come up with.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
I feel like with seasons there was just this, I don't know, unwavering really like confidence, and I feel like you can hear it within the music. So I just feel like for whatever next, I'm super excited, but I also feel like I'm super just in the moment about it too. Like I'm not too much looking forward to like wondering what the completion is going to sound like, but more of just being in the moment and enjoying the nitty gritty, just putting in the work every day to get it there.
I love that you're still doing albums, by the way. I always, every artist that comes on here and talks to me about albums, and when they explain why they still do albums, I'm like, glad you still do an album, because I'm an album guy.
Yeah.
Like all my favorite artists,
Yeah.
I remember the albums. You know what I mean? Like you remember songs, you remembered certain things. Like if a single came out, you usually don't remember like the date or like where you were when this single came out. You remember like the album. I'm like, yeah, I remember being in school. I was in study hall. I listened to that album like the day it dropped. I don't know. That's just me though. Like,
Yeah, and
but
I feel like too, like, I mean, there's a medium that you can make. I feel like um, I feel like too, a lot of people around me were like, hey, your albums are like 20, 25 minutes long. Like, what is the reason? And I think that's just a matter of paying attention to fans and paying attention to society, because we all have a short attention span. So every project that I drop, I want that person to be able to go, okay, I'm going to start and play this and be able to listen to it in its entirety before I get to work. Because chances are, if they start it and they get to work and they're like, oh man, I made it through track, 6, but now I got to get to work, but I'm going to finish on the way home. Like, what are the chances that they're actually going to remember and like, okay, well, let me start exactly on track 7 a minute in. Whereas, you give them a little less, and that keeps them wanting more, but then they can also digest the full, project in its whole.
It's crazy because, like, thinking about that, I never thought that when EPs started becoming a big thing on, like, streaming that would take off. But now EPs are, like, the big thing. It's like you put out 5 or, like, 6 or 7 on, like, a project, and then, bam, you got your whole thing. And a lot of people love that because it's like you said, it's only, like, 20, maybe 30 minutes, and they can listen to the whole thing and run it back, you know what I mean, really easily. So definitely something to think about when you're putting tracks together and everything. And I think that gives you more flexibility too, kind of just to come up with different themes too. Like if you had those 20 whatever records, you could break it up into like 3 different themes or 2 different theme projects and just make concepts and kind of give your fans different versions of you. So
exactly.
So here's an interesting question I've been asking on a good amount of the episodes recently. I don't know if you've ever thought about your lasting impact as far as like when someone new hears your music or maybe someone that's already been a fan of yours for a while. Like, what do you think you want them to take away from a song of yours or an album of yours? Like, what do you think your lasting impact is on them? Like, what do you want it to be?
I think just, that we truly can manifest anything we want, and I think, it's crazy. I've had my fans so involved in my career that, I feel like, and I know like the feedback a lot of the times is like, it feels like we've grown together, and I think that's such a cool, like, impact to have is that, I don't ever, no matter where this goes, I don't want people to ever look at it as like, well, he's da 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 da, whatever. Like, those people that started to grow with me have made my career. So I think just the impact of them feeling like, wow, we're super involved, like he cares, because at the end of the day, it's way more than artistry. I think I sit a lot of times and think about the impact I want to have as a person more than I do an artist. And using music to be like, well, how can I truly take the music, that I have, the platform, if you would, for music, and just make a change, and I think that change is like making people realize that, again, you can literally do whatever the heck you want to do, as long as your mindset is there. If this kid from a small town in Belleville, that, I don't know, was looked at as whatever, like as a kid, because, I don't know, whatever the reason is, if I can take this here, I think anyone can, really.
I think that goes back to, I don't think we know, like, as music makers, we have a lot of power too. Like, people look at art, like if you're not an artist, you look at artists and you're like, they're incredible people. So you already have like a voice there, and I love what you just said, because you should always try and use your platform for good and to do good for other people and just kind of lift people up, and that could be in so many different ways, like community based or through online, through social media, like just try and help people as much as possible. So I think that's something that a lot of people, especially in music, kind of overlook. It's like, and we're always trying to get eyes on us, you know what I mean? Like, we're artists, we want people to look at us and appreciate our music and do that, but it's like, also, it's not always about you. It's about your listeners and your fans and the other people, that you have the power to lift those people up. So why would you not want to do that? You know what I mean? So
and I mean, we wouldn't be anywhere without those people. And I think just thinking about the conversations I've had, the deep conversations with fans about, the impact that this song makes or has made, or, they listen to it at this moment and it totally just turned everything around. And it's like, for me, that's more rewarding than being like, oh, wow, this song just hit 1 million streams. Look, the impact that, it has on a person's life, their mood, that they turn to this song, or even a song of mine in general, when they feel X, Y, and Z emotion. And I think that's an amazing impact to have.
And I like you said about streams, I don't think that lasts that long. Like, that's like a dopamine thing. You know what I mean? Like, when you see the streams, you're like, wow, that's awesome. And then you're back down here again, and you're focused on the next song. You're like, okay, I got to get there again. The feeling of what you just said, where someone said, oh, this saved my life, or this is what I listened to on the way to work today, and it made me feel better, that never goes away, because you can do that with so many people, and you can affect so many people. And even if you only affect one person, it's like, damn, I did that just by doing what I love, and now it affected a total stranger. That's the best part of it all. So, yeah, 100%. So, last 3 questions here. These are questions I've asked every guest on every episode. So to start off, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
Well, 10 years ago, I would have been 17, and I would have told myself to be unapologetically yourself. Don't worry about if other people care that you're, wanting to make music. If you're doing this, just go do it.
That tunnel vision.
Yeah, have tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Outside energy affects a lot, but to have a clear set goal, clear set energy internal will take you further than you can imagine.
So 10 years from now, then, where do you think you envision yourself in your life and your career?
10 years from now, at 37, I'll be 38 technically. Wow. makes me feel old. But I truly would want to again just be making music for myself and out of the main stream, if you would, and just like being able to provide my future children and future wife the life that they deserve and want. I think looking that far ahead, like, music will always be a part of me, but music will matter less and less at that point. I feel like, again, just being incredibly smart over the next 10 years about my moves to where that, I've made an impact, and I feel like I've made enough of an impact, and I've created a empire, if you would, and, I think I'd be very happy at that point.
Mm-hmm. Just continuing that journey, that evolution, no doubt.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you have any final words of wisdom today for the listeners?
Final words of wisdom. As I've alluded to multiple times, you are the manifester of your reality. If you truly want something, stop thinking about it. You're wasting the time. Just go do it. The hardest thing to do is making that initial step. But once you do it, I promise you, everything is just so much more simpler after that. And enjoy the process, enjoy the ride. As hard as it is to not focus on the end goal, focus on the moment. Mm-hmm. Biggest words of wisdom.
Got to take the leap of faith before you get anywhere. So
exactly,
man. Cody, man, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you joining me. Thanks for
thank you so much.
The podcast and everything. I'm looking forward to all the music you got coming out soon again. The music videos, like you mentioned, and everything. I think you got a great career ahead of you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing everything that you're going to do. Good luck on it all, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing a part 2 of this very soon.
Dude, likewise. Best of luck, man. I got on here because I enjoy what you do. I enjoy your topics, your conversations. So you keep doing what you do, man. And, we'll meet again at the top.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. That was episode 92. Feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. And we'll be back this time next week with another great episode of The Creators. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.